This is TWiT.
So, last Thursday, BBC News carried a story under the headline, Apple slams UK surveillance bill proposals. But the first line of their piece was a showstopper. It read, Apple says it will remove services such as FaceTime and iMessage from the UK rather than weaken security if new proposals are made law and enacted. So, okay, I mean, we've sort of been waiting to hear from Apple, right? We've heard from Signal and we've heard from WhatsApp. So as we know, since we've been tracking this super engaging struggle between the commercial forces who want to enforce absolute privacy and those in the governments who are wishing to make privacy conditional, the UK is seeking to update their Investigatory Powers Act, the IPA, which was originally created in 2016. So now, 7 years later, they want to update it. It wants to require messaging services to clear their security features with the UK's Home Office before releasing them to customers. The act also lets the Home Office demand that security features are disabled without telling the public. And under this forthcoming update, this would have to be immediate upon the Home Office's demand. So WhatsApp, Signal, and all of the others have previously expressed their strongest possible opposition to this, with Signal making what has been, up to now the strongest public statement, stating that they will simply walk, as they put it, from the UK. Now, Apple has clearly been in opposition to this too, but until now it hasn't drawn any such sharp line in the sand, but that's what just happened. The UK government has just opened an 8-week-long, what they called a consultation on the proposed amendments to the IPA. The government's claiming that they are, quote, not seeking to create new powers, unquote, but only to make the act more relevant to the current technology. So Apple has submitted its formal 9-page response to this now open consultation period. Apple formally opposes 3 things: having to tell the Home Office of any changes to product security features before they're released, the requirement for non-UK based companies to comply with changes that would affect their product globally, such as providing a backdoor to end-to-end encryption, and having to take action immediately if a notice to disable or block a feature is received from the Home Office rather than waiting until after the demand has been reviewed or appealed, which is the way things are today. Apple says 3 things. It would not make changes to security features specifically for one country that would weaken a product for all of its users. Second, some changes would require reissuing a software update, so could not be made secretly. And third, the proposals, quote, constitute a serious and direct threat to data security and information privacy, unquote, that would affect people outside the UK. And, remember that what the various governments here are asking for is not simply the ability for these various encrypted services to respond to targeted court-ordered surveillance. That's an entirely different ask. What the governments are seeking now is universal surveillance of all communications of all kinds for all of their citizens. And, it's hard to argue that that's not new. That's not an update to anything that exists today. The BBC, in their report, quoted a cybersecurity expert, Professor Alan Woodward from Surrey University, who said that technology companies are, quote, unlikely to accept the proposals. In an understatement, he said, quote, there is a degree of arrogance and ignorance from the government if they believe some of the larger tech companies will comply with the new requirements without a major fight. And I think that Signal and Apple have been quite clear that they have no interest in or need to fight. In order to avoid breaking any newly enacted legislation, they'll simply pull their services from those regions which enact laws that seek to violate the privacy of their users period. Fight over, nothing to fight about. Then we'll see what the voters in those areas think of the fact that their government has essentially denied them these services, which they have been having and enjoying with no problem. And now apparently they can't any longer. And we'll also see how the bureaucrats, law enforcement, and intelligence services like not having any secure messaging services available for them in support of their own needs for privacy. What's good for the goose? So the Home Office told the BBC that the Investigatory Powers Act was designed to, quote, protect the public from criminals, child sex abusers, and terrorists. That's obviously an honorable goal, but the price for doing so, is just too high, at least using this technology. So anyway, we've been following this fascinating evolution, and it is interesting that, here this professor says, the government's ignorant if they think they can do this. Well, governments create laws, right? And so, they could create any law that they want to, but no one's forcing Apple to do something it doesn't want to do. So it'll be interesting to see if, does the UK back down when they realize that, these companies are serious, or is it going to take a period of not having these services available? And then what? Anyway, really, really interesting.
This episode of Tech Break brought to you by ACI Learning. 87% of companies have skill gaps. Secure your business with ACI Learning's Insights, the new skills gap analysis tool that revolutionizes how businesses train and engage employees. Try it for yourself, then bring your team along. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit for a free 2-week trial.